guys, I think that my roommates just, somehow psychically know when I'm gonna film, because they just always leave. They always leave when I'm like about to film, and they're like, hey, watch the dogs for me, and I'm like, okay. And then I look at the dogs, and they look back at me, and they're like, they're gonna play with us, right? And I'm like, but I got to film. And they're like, but they're gonna play with us, right? And I'm like, well, guess I'll film tomorrow. Luckily today, they're a bit tired. We wore them out yesterday. We're running around, so they're gonna let me film today. And that is a good thing, because then we have our class. And I hope you enjoy today. Let's go ahead and get to it. Welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. Today's class is gonna be on the first 4 chapters of Iron Kissed in the Mercy Thompson series, which is book 3 of the series. Today I don't have tons of different points for this set of chapters, but I do have a lot to talk about on each of the topics. So hopefully it will still be a good class today with a lot of good details in there and things to discuss and things that you will hopefully find interesting. Let's go ahead and get started, and we'll start with our recap as always. So the first scene is with Mercy being at Kyle and Warren's house. She's having a bad horror movie night with them when she gets a call from Z cashing in the favors she acquired or started with the last story when she used the articles to kill Andre without the Fae's permission. So she used the Fae's gifts for something that it wasn't originally intended, so she has to fulfill a favor, and Z is cashing it in now. So he comes and picks her up and takes her to the reservation, where he asks her to sniff around as a coyote and to see if she can smell who this killer is that seems to have killed multiple Fae on the reservation. So she goes ahead and starts looking at several different houses, sniffs around. At a couple places she discovers that there are some different things about the houses that are not natural. She even at one point discovers a opening to Underhill and gets lost in Underhill shortly after walking through the sandy beach, where Z has to then come and save her from there and bring her back out again. She basically decides that O'Donnell, who was the guard at the Fae reservation when she entered, is the commonality between all of the Fae homes. So it seems that O'Donnell has been killing Faes on the reservation. Then the next day, she goes ahead and goes to Tumbleweed with everybody. Kyle, Warren, Sam's there, Adam's there, a lot of her friends are there. And Sam performs at Tumbleweed, and when she's there, she discovers or finds out that Z has been arrested for killing O'Donnell. Obviously, she's told that by Uncle Mike that he did not kill him, that he was dead when they got there, but they arrested him because they were at the because he was at the house and Uncle Mike was able to not be found. So she decides to go ahead and talk to Tony about Z in the hopes that she can try and clear things up and give Z a fighting chance to be proven innocent. And she goes ahead to talk to a lawyer with the help of Kyle that's going to represent Z and be the best lawyer that he can possibly have for his case. Mercy then goes to O'Donnell's house without anybody else knowing about it and takes a sniff around, tries to see if she can scent any scents. And that is where she learns that O'Donnell is part of the Citizens of Bright Future, which is an anti-Fae group. And it's also where she sees this walking stick that seems like it's out of place, and she witnesses the ghost's impression of O'Donnell's death. So she doesn't know who did it, but she has seen how he was killed. Alright, so quite a few things happen in this story. That was just kind of a really quick recap based stuff as always. But that's still quite a few points to get through for this recap, especially for just 4 chapters. We really jump in quick in this story, which we will talk about shortly. But first, I want to go ahead and talk about world building. Because this first set of 4 chapters does a very similar thing of what we had done in the middle section of Bloodbound, which was the last book. And that is where we have a lot of world building and a lot of new concepts that we didn't know existed in this world beforehand. It didn't come up in book 1, it didn't come up in book 2, and now we know that these are things that are part of this world as well, which I think is actually really cool about the Mercy Thompson series and about Patricia Briggs' style between the different books, is that you learn what you need for each book, and then the next book we build more layers, and the next book we build more layers of this world. So we never fully think from book 1 or book 2, this is the way the world is, this is all the things that we're going to need to know, and there's no more things to know about this world and how it works. So we haven't really interacted with Fae much other than through Z yet. But now we're having to have much more interaction with the Fae by being on the reservation, by, dealing with the Fae houses, by having all these different things going on with the Fae and being in their territory. We now have a bigger picture of the Fae and how they relate to the world that we didn't have before. So we see, at this point, we see the potential that the world has, but doesn't have yet. That's one of the main things I want to talk about. And I know that kind of seems kind of a weird statement. But we do see in this set of the potential that the supernatural has to affect this world if the world, or the people that live in the world, I should say, would let it. And what I mean by that is that we see through Mercy being a coyote, sniffing around these houses, trying to catch scents, trying to be able to find a killer with her supernatural abilities, that if the world would embrace the supernaturals, if they would embrace the Fae, if they would embrace werewolves, obviously they don't know about vampires at this point, but if they would at least embrace the 2 that they know, they could have things happen with those abilities that could be helpful. For example, werewolves, or in this case Mercy, who's a coyote, have great senses of smell. And they can find killers, or at least know there's a common theme of scents throughout the houses if they didn't know the specific scent. Like Mercy ended up being lucky enough to have sent the person whose scent it was before going into the houses. But as a being that can have a really good sense of smell, this could actually be helpful in the world of finding killers. If they would embrace having a werewolf on up the police force, then you could have another way of identifying people who've done crimes. So we see the potential this world has and the options that it has. We don't know if the world is going to get there or not, but even with this world building right at the beginning of this set of chapters, Patricia has set up a way for us to see the potential this world has and that the world is still growing. So not only do we know what has been in place, what we know what is for sure the case, but we also see where this world could go if it were to embrace that kind of future. If it were to accept supernaturals, it does have good things that can come from it. We don't just see, supernaturals are all bad. We see something that could be good for even just regular people out on the streets. It could be helped by supernatural, or different job positions could have better results with the help of supernaturals and their gifts and the paranormals. So I think that it's very interesting for us to see this this setup where we see a whole bunch of new information, and we even see where this world could go and what possibilities are still available, and that there's still a path for us to grow with the world. Next, we're going to go ahead and talk about politics. Patricia has really started building politics into this particular book. Obviously, we knew politics existed in the fact that the werewolves, when we first started in the first book, were kept in secret. They weren't being brought out to the forefront of society. So, we already knew that politics existed for the supernatural or the paranormal world by the fact that what's hidden, what's not hidden. What do the regular people know? What do they need to know? What are they trying to hide? What the options are. So there's that little bit of that play going on already. But now we're building another layer of politics, and the fact that the Fae, which we already knew from the beginning, was out in the open. Now we realize that there are actually activists against the Fae. We have activists against the werewolves. Activists that are trying to separate them and segregate the world from humans and non-humans. We didn't really have this presented to us before. So not only is politics about, how the societies are ruling themselves, or how the world needs to know them or not know them, and how we're keeping that piece. But now we're also seeing, now that they are out in the open, and because, the Fae was already out in the open, how people respond to that. We obviously knew that the Fae were not totally welcomed in the fact that they have their own reservations, and that's been the case for a while. They've been pushed to the side. This is where the Fae can have their space, and mixed in regular society, they're not really very welcome. They're trying to keep their own place to live, right, instead of trying to integrate them into society as a whole. So we already knew that humans in general were not overly fond of Fae, even if they weren't, hostile enough to start war or to go against them. They were trying to make it in between where, you have your own space and we have our own space, and we know that you exist, but we'd rather have you not exist in our society. Well, now, especially with the werewolves coming out, we see more about how there are people out there very actively vying against them being intermixed, especially because werewolves at this point do not have reservations. They do not have their own place to live. They are unavoidably being mixed into society and not being pushed out of society. So the activist groups have now stepped up to the plate, or at least become into our vision, because we have had them against Fae more than we've had against werewolves. So we see these long-established groups of people who don't want supernatural and paranormal stuff in their world trying to actively push them out and to protest and to make it even more your space and our space. It doesn't seem like, it seems kind of funny, because when I first read this story and became aware of these groups, it's kind of oh yeah, obviously those are those kind of people out there. Just as we have people who believe certain things shouldn't exist now, and they have activist groups for that, or they believe that something should exist and are activists for that. So it seems kind of silly to think in a society that's very similar to ours, it just has paranormal creatures in it, that there would be paranormal activists that don't want the supernatural and the paranormal to be intermixed with the regular world. Well, regular meaning our world, the version of our world that we know. So it's very interesting. It also adds another layer to the storyline in the fact that there have been Fae killings. So the Fae have been having these murders. We now know that there are activists against the Fae, and it kind of broadens the world, broadens the view, broadens everything for us as the reader, and being oh yeah, this does exist. Oh yeah, there are people who are unhappy. Oh yeah, this is something new that we didn't know before. And I'm sure if the vampires ever came out to the public, there'd be them right in the middle of those groups too, and especially since they are one of the most dangerous for them, hunting humans to live, and not usually very kindly, that they would be the most pushback from society. And then we've got a lot more about the Fae specifically. We've learned a lot about the Fae and how they work, as well as new things about their structure in this world. So, the Fae are self-governed. Obviously, since they've been given these reservations and they've been given their own space, they do not have to follow, at least on the reservation, the laws of regular humans. They have their own government, they have their own thing going, and that is accepted by the non-paranormal community. They understand that, hey, when you're on the reservation, that is your place. That is, your own thing. Though I do think it's very interesting that the Fae border is policed. You have to check in and out, and you have to have ID cards, even though, as Mercy points out, that glamour could be anything, and so anybody could just change their appearance and make themselves look like they're not what's on that picture. So it seems kind of silly to have that be the way for them to have identification. But it is not a place that, even though it's self-governed, is not a place that is left out of human reach. There's still a patrol on the border, and there's still a distinct, kind of like going into a whole different country where you have to have your checkpoint of being like, okay, you're passing through, and okay, you're coming back. And then we talk a little bit about the Fae Council. I don't totally remember if we've learned about the Fae Council at all before, if we've mentioned it. I think this might have been our first real mention of the Fae Council. And we learned that Uncle Mike is on this council. So obviously we know that the really powerful Fae are probably on there, but we don't really know much about the council at this point. We just are learning about it. We just know that it exists. They are the ones that govern the Fae community. I believe we do. Actually, I think we do learn about the council in books 1 and 2. I think that's what we talked about, how they, mentioned all the Fae coming out and things like that. So we're just learning a little bit more about it. We're learning that Uncle Mike is on it. So whatever that means about Uncle Mike, we're not really sure at this point. It means that he could be very, very powerful, have a lot of sway in the community, but he doesn't seem like somebody who would be flaunting his power and being overly harsh, that kind of stuff. So kind of just like a little bit of a touch in there, like, okay, we've got this little bit more of information than we had before about it, and we're gonna see if we learn even more about the council as we go on. And then we've got the Human Government Agency of the BFA, or the Bureau of Fae Affairs, and they're the ones that police the border, and they're the ones that, kind of oversee the reservations and Fae in general. So once again, we see that there is a political piece of the government that is overlooking the Fae community. Of course, since they are the most established paranormal at this point, it makes sense that they are not yet for all supernaturals or for all paranormal creatures. We just have it for the Fae at this moment. But it is kind of interesting how human society is being so strict with the Fae. And it is interesting to see this bureaucracy, this bureau, being in effect, because once again, it's kind of like the activist group, and the fact that we didn't really think about it existing until it was in our face. Then it's like, oh, that makes sense. That seems like something that could happen. That seems like something that would happen. And it's on the human side, not the Fae side. So it's not like, it's intermixed. The Bureau is all about the humans watching over the Fae, making sure that the Fae stay in line. Which we know, especially because Mercy knows, that the Fae could just wipe everybody out if they wanted to. They obviously choose not to, and yes, they have less power than they did before, but it is clear that they have more power than they let the rest of the humans think and the rest of the humans know about. And so it really seems kind of silly to have this checkpoint where you go in and go out with ideas that really don't mean anything in terms of Fae. And they're trying to keep this Fae contained. And they're trying to make it so that way they can watch over them and know their comings and goings and what they're doing. Of course, again, it seems like, oh yeah, that seems like something that would happen, that would be the case, that seems obvious that would exist in this kind of world. But until you actually are presented with it and know it for sure, it is a little bit like, oh, okay, we're learning something more. Oh, hey, didn't know about that. That's interesting. And we're adding more complexity to this world as we continue to know it and continue to grow with Mercy's knowledge of knowing it. Okay, Fae glamour doesn't seem to be able to work on smell. That's something brand new that we learn at the beginning of this book. And Z has mentioned that he didn't think it would work well on smell. But Mercy just confirms that. And the fact that she goes into the reservation and she is uncovering their glamour by smell. If she focuses on just the smell that seems out of place, the whole glamour crumbles and she can see through it and interact with whatever else. That's how she ended up seeing the woods in the backyard of that one house, and she ends up going into the underworld and being trapped there momentarily because she smells the world and smells what's happening and can smell Underhill, and the glamour fades away and she is then able to interact with what's actually there. Just like when she drives in with Z to the reservation, all she can smell is swampland. But she doesn't see any swamps. So that could get her into trouble. It could be good, useful information. But we will see how that continues to grow this world and how like the werewolves interact with it and how Mercy interacts with it and other creatures that could possibly smell good or well enough that they could break the glamour that the Fae relies so heavily on. Because the Fae really do always use glamour. The whole entire reservation, it seems, based on what Mercy is saying, is all glamour. All the houses have glamour that have connections to Underhill. There is glamour for every Fae in their appearance because they want to look more human. So having the smell be able to break the glamour is something that is a weakness of the Fae that Mercy has now uncovered, and it could be dangerous to her and anybody else who knows about this way to break their glamour. And last but not least, kind of I've already mentioned before, we have some places that are connected to Underhill. So we have some places in the real world that the Fae are connecting to a different plane, to Underhill, which we don't know too much about other than that's where the Fae came from, and it's kind of a world that connects to this world, the real world, but not like another dimension per se, but another world or entity that can then interact with our world. And the Fae used to go, through Underhill and live there and come back to the human world. But we obviously know that they are no longer able to do that, except for it seems in some places. And Mercy does end up in Underhill momentarily, like we said before. So we really learned a lot about new things in this world, in this society, that we didn't know before. We learned a lot about the Fae, how the Fae works, how the Fae reservation works. We learn more about politics between the Fae and the humans, and a little bit, obviously the activists do also believe group werewolves in it, but it's been mostly established with the Fae because the werewolves are new out. And we see the potential this world has and the growth that it could take if it were to take it. So we really learn a whole heck of a lot in the first 4 chapters of this book. If there's anything that you think that I should have mentioned, anything else that you think I missed, any other world building that you saw in this 4 chapters, go ahead and link or talk to me down below, comment and tell me, because if I missed something, I would really love to hear your thoughts and feelings about that, and to be brought attention to even more things that I didn't realize also are contributing to our world building in this book. Okay, next I want to talk about the pacing. Now obviously we have a very similar pacing in this novel as we have in the past ones, but we haven't really talked about it and how stories progress, this particular series, how the stories progress and things. So I thought we could go ahead and touch on it a bit with this book now that we've had a couple under our belt. And Patricia really writes these books with a quick pacing. We jump right into the story, we get right to the goods. We don't have a slow build up and then finally trouble happens. It's like we've got a chapter and then if if we get a full chapter, that's lucky. We usually just see a quick glimpse of like, okay, Mercy's living her normal life and now this is the moment that things go to crap. And so at the very beginning, Z calls her, is calling in her favor. She goes to the reservation and we're talking about murderers and we're trying to figure out where the murder is. And we see that she is in danger possibly by being called upon by Z to look at these murders. We don't know exactly how compliant this is with the Fae Council, so she could already be in danger, but we are very quickly thrown into the meat of the story and what the story is going to be about. So we jump right into the problem, we really get ourselves going real quick, and we get, especially in this book, the world building right up front. We really get a whole bunch of knowledge thrown at us, especially in this particular novel. Is right away, we're in the problem, she's learning this, she's learning that about the world, about everything that's going on, about broadening her view on, politics, on what's going on in the Fae Reservation that she had no clue about. She's learning more about how the Bureau is handled. She's learning about Underhill being in these houses. She's learning a whole heck of a lot, and it's all being thrown at once at us as readers. Z is already captured, for possibly murdering O'Donnell, and that's right at the beginning. We're discovering these houses, he's asked for this favor, and then all of a sudden he's arrested and she's got to try and figure out how to save him. So a lot is thrown at us at a very quick pace, just jumping us right in there, just throwing us to the wolves. And we have very, very rapid build of questions, of confusion, of wondering what the heck is going on, just as Mercy is wondering what the heck she's going to do. We have a lot of questions about what's going to happen at a very quick pace because everything is thrown at us at once. We really are like, okay, what's going to happen? What is Mercy going to do? Where is this going to go? What are we going to do to fix it? Or in this case, what is Mercy going to do to fix it? So it's not a story that, builds up and then finally we get to the plot and all of a sudden things are going crazy. No, we're going crazy right at the beginning. Just like the last book, Bloodbound, we started off right away going with Stefan to meet that demon sorcerer. And from there on, things got nuts right away. And everything just fell apart instantly. It seems to be the story of Mercy's life, where everything just falls apart instantly. And so I think it's really interesting. I really like that Patricia just plunges you in. There is no need to, slide into the book or get into the groove. It's just like, you're here for a story and Mercy's got problems because she always has problems. When does she not? At this point, even though we're only on book 3, I'm sure you can tell that Mercy just always has problems. We can tell that even just from the first 3 books that there's always something and Mercy always seems to be in the middle of it. So yeah, it's a much quicker pace, especially compared to Dragonlance, where things Not that things didn't get bad quickly, but you had a little bit more space in between it. For this one, we just run right in and we go, 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 go. What do you prefer? Do you prefer having a quick-paced, throw yourself in, get right to the point, problems are shooting off the second you get into the story? Or do you prefer something that has a chapter or two of sliding into the story, sliding into the characters, seeing where things are at, and then having things go all nuts? Or do you prefer things to like the progression of a slow, this happens, and then now this is happening, and now this is happening, and slowly we're unraveling everything until everything is falling apart? I'd really love to know. What is your preferred plot progression? Okay, and then, as always, let's go ahead and talk about Mercy. As always, we talk about Mercy because it is a first-person point of view novel, and Mercy's our main character. So really, we relate everything through her. We learn a lot about her. We're following her around. So obviously everything links back to Mercy, especially since Mercy usually has to be the answer to the problems that happen in this book. And so we continue to learn new things about her. We continue to see her grow and progress, and we see who she is as a person and her reliability. And so some things we know and some things we don't. And it just makes things interesting when you try and see the predictability of a person as well as the unpredictability of a person. How the person grows based on different things that happen. How she makes the decisions now that she's gone through these life problems. What kind of things are just things that happen to her and she has to run along with it. You really get to know and appreciate her, at least in my opinion. I come to know and appreciate her when I read. And every single book gives some things that I expect and some things that I don't. So we notice that she is linked between the different paranormal groups in the area. And we've kind of seen this before, but we really see it now that this is book 3. We can really recognize it. She's got ties to the werewolves. She's got ties to the vampires, and now we see her ties to the fae. Of course, we already knew these existed. This is not something that is a brand new concept, but we now just can really see through the progression of book 1, book 2, and now book 3 that she is closely tied to each different paranormal group, the main paranormal groups in the area. She is doing favors for Stefan in the last one, and now, though this favor is one that she kind of got herself into, she is obligated to do it, she's now doing a favor for Z. And though she was obligated to do this particular task, I don't think that she would have said no if Z had asked her as a personal favor, if you know what I mean. So we see her connection to Z is strong enough that he is protecting her. We see that he's trusting her with this. And we saw in the last one, Stefan, she's close enough to that he asked for an important favor, and she is then involved in his life and his world. So once again, we're just seeing the links and the ties of the friends that she has and how that is getting her, yes, into trouble, but also how important these people are to her and the links that she has. We also, once again, see how caring and loyal she is. This is something that I think is a very main trait of Mercy, is that no matter what, she is loyal to those she deems as herself. Deems as hers, not herself. Deems as hers. So the person a person, no matter if they're vampire, fae, human, werewolf, none of the above, if she believes that that person is belonging to her or somebody who is her responsibility, whether she likes them or not, she is going to be there, loyal, 100%, always showing up. And that's a very, very wonderful trait for her. And especially as all these crazy things are happening, it's necessary for her to be loyal and caring in order to make it through some of these events. Otherwise, you know, people would just be dying left and right, and she wouldn't give a crap, and all the characters that we have would be gone. But it really also shows why these links that she has between the different groups is so strong. She sticks by Z no matter what. She doesn't even question for one moment whether he did it or not. She does ask because she knows that he is capable of it, but once Uncle Mike says no, he didn't, she's like, okay, no, he didn't. No excuses, no thoughts, no doubts, no nothing. Uncle Mike said this is what happened, and she believes 100% that that is what happened. She trusts Z. She completely is going to stand by him, get him the lawyer, get him what he needs, and not take no for an answer, especially if Z tells her to not do anything. She's going to be like, I don't care what you want. You are important to me, and I am sticking by you. So stick it somewhere else. And she also gives up her secret for Z. She doesn't know this lawyer very well. This lawyer is even anti-paranormal, which, you know, is an interesting choice. Also, they point out that it's a good choice in this situation, for them at least, for Z's side. But she gives up her secret to somebody who's basically a relative stranger in order to get this lawyer to represent Z and to believe Z as much as that lawyer can believe Z. So it's a lot for her. She doesn't give up her secret to just anybody. She likes to go under the radar. She likes to be unknown. She doesn't want to make waves. So it's very important for her to continue staying under the radar and not let people know who she is. She likes being able to operate as a human, for in most cases. So that shows how loyal and caring she is that she's willing to give up this secret. She's willing to stand by him and not believe for a second that he did it if he has been said to have not done it. And then once again, we find that she finds herself in a situation of being somewhere she's not supposed to be because of her curiosity. Mercy is somebody who doesn't take no for an answer, and though she is smart, she doesn't play the inform other people game or the let's, you know, have a backup situation. She's very much I'm curious about this. I want to know about this. I want answers. It's my responsibility. This is somebody who I care about that's being affected by this. I'm just gonna go and do and ask permission later, or ask for forgiveness instead of permission. So she goes to O'Donnell's house and kind of gets herself in a little bit of a pickle, because not only does she see this ghost and this crazy death, and then she's also concerned about the bird that shows up, and it's obviously a fae, it's obviously something that could hurt her, and she's kind of in a pickle. Which seems to be the case always, is that Mercy is just headstrong and just kind of goes and is just gonna do it. Doesn't really matter what it is, she's just gonna go, jump in, and get her done. So, yeah, those are some points that I thought were really stand out again about Mercy in these 4 chapters. 2 of them were things that were just kind of solidified what we expect from her, who she is at the very core of her nature. Is she's someone who's very curious and headstrong and just gonna bowl in there and do it if she needs to have it done, as well as very loyal and caring, and is gonna do whatever it takes to protect the people she deems as her responsibility. And then we have a little bit of the, not really new, but just a more deeper insight of the connections that she has between the different communities. So now we're seeing her connection to the Fae community. And if there's anything that you think that I missed that you would like to discuss or think is important to talk about in terms of Mercy's personality, who she is, all of that, please go ahead and comment down below. I would love to hear it and discuss with you anything that I could have missed or that you think is important to bring up. Now for our nitty gritty section, I only have one thing to talk about, which usually I have a couple more, but this time there was just so many big things that I didn't really see anything that was a small thing that I felt like would continue on that we needed to point out. I felt like it was more all contributed to the bigger sections that we talked about. But I do want us to keep in mind that we start this story off with a very prominent love triangle that Warren brings up that is with Adam and with Sam. Obviously, we know that Stefan is kind of in there too, but at this point, he's not a serious contender, at least as far as we know, and Mercy is not interested in him at this point. But she hasn't fully committed to Adam, and we do know that Sam is trying to get her back. So there is this little bit of a love triangle going on with Adam and Sam fighting over Mercy. And Warren brings this up and brings it to her attention and saying that she needs to make a decision, whether it's one or the other or neither, no matter what it is, that she needs to make a decision, because these two dominant wolves cannot be butting heads like this and continually and make it out okay. It's already starting to affect the people around them, because there is two dominant wolves. So yeah, let's go ahead and keep that in mind. I do feel like that is a prominent thing that is going to be going through our story, since this romance has kind of been developing with Adam over several books. And of course, Sam is her ex, and she's had feelings for him before. So we will see how that progresses through this book. If it does, maybe she'll decide she wants neither of them. Okay, that was the end of our first 4 chapters of Mercy Thompson. Let's go ahead and have us read the next 4 chapters for our next class. So it's going to be chapters 4 through 8. And yeah, hopefully you are enjoying it still and enjoying the series in general. I really hope that this is something that if you didn't read it before you were on this channel, that I led you to discovering something really great. Any comments, questions, concerns, anything you want to talk about, anything at all, go ahead and list it down below, whatever you want to say down below, or you can find me at Twitter, at fantasyfiction1, or you can also find me at Facebook, which is facebook.com/fantasyfiction1. You can also go ahead and find me on my blog, fantasyfictionfanatics.net, or you can contact me there, or you're welcome to check out all the blog posts I have on there. I've got book reviews, topics on fantasy fiction, I've got recommendations, all that stuff. So go ahead and check that out if that interests you. You're welcome to let me know about anything you want on content on there as well. You can also contact me through email. So whatever you'd like to do, however is best for you to contact me, go ahead and do that. I would love, love, love to have a discussion with you. And thanks again for joining, and I'll see you next time. Bye.